Welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And today it's time to talk black metal. Specifically, we're talking and celebrating the third studio album by Norwegian black metal band Satyricon. That's Nemesis Divina. And it's not just Peter and me who are talking this album up, making a return to Horns Up all the way from Singapore once again. Give it up for Ravi Balakrishnan. How's it going, Ravi?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, man.
I just asked you the same question.
Well, it's going well.
Let's come back to Nemesis Divina. As I said before, this is Satyricon's third studio album, released 22nd April 1996, and that means it's set to turn 25 years old this year in 2021. Generally considered one of the must-listen classics of Norwegian black metal, Nemesis Divina clocks in just under 43 minutes with 7 songs. The album features founding members Sigurd von Greven, better known as
Satyr.
Yes. Satyr on vocals, guitars, and bass, and Jetel Vidar Helvstad, better known as
Frost.
on drums or battery, whatever you want to call it. Joining them, of course, is Ted Skjlum,
Who's actually, I'm going to butcher this, but Keveldulv. I'm like, that's what he's credited
we better know him as Nocturno Culto from Dark Throne on guitars. So we are here to bring in the 25th birthday of this album, and we'll do this without cake, but we'll do this with thoughts, opinions, and our stories about the album. We'll run through the songs, definitely chat about Mother North, and try and answer just why this album needs to be celebrated. So let's set the stage and start the conversation with a simple question. When did you first hear the album? Paint us your picture. Tell us. And we'll begin with you, Peter. What was your first experience with Nemesis Divina? And how much of experience had you had with black metal and with Satyricon when you first popped your Nemesis Divina cherry? What was it like?
So, I mean, it wasn't like as dramatic as you're making it out to be, right? I mean, because I first remember hearing Satyricon on a compilation, and I think it was a Century Media compilation. So they had the track Fuel for Hatred. And by then, like, Satyricon was this black and roll band. So I was like, okay, who are these guys, kind of thing. And I think anyone who hears older episodes of like all the albums from 20 years, as always, this album was given to me on a burnt CD. But this was like somebody who actually was giving up on metal. So a friend of a friend was like, I don't want to listen to extreme metal anymore. So I got like a bunch, these stacked of burnt CDs, and it was like Dark Throne, Satyricon, all those kind of bands. So as part of it was Nemesis Divine and Divina, and that's when I kind of first heard the album. So I had heard a bit of black metal, but like going through all of this, you can tell like why 25 years later we're still talking about the album. What about you, Ravi?
Well, even I landed it as a burnt CD initially. I met this guy on, I think, a short-lived Indian gaming forum called kawabonka.com. Strange name, but hey, it was the first .com boom, so people probably thought it was cool. This dude apparently trained for, the burgeoning professional gaming tourney scene, which was like in its, probably, what comes before infancy? This is before infancy, so it's probably just swirling around in the scrotal sack of, where it was going to emerge from. So this guy had, a whole bunch of these new heavy metal bands that I was interested in checking out. So I had to pay him $100 a disc because, hey, people were ripping each other off hand over fist back then.
Ripping each other off while ripping off albums.
Yeah, while ripping off the artist as well. So I got Nemesis Divina, I got Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, and I got the Slipknot debut. I pretty much liked them in the order that I mentioned. I really liked Nemesis Divina. I liked Enthroned Darkness Triumphant. I found it slightly cheesy at the time, but now I've grown to completely love it. And the Slipknot debut had its moments, but
okay. So,
and of course, there was the video. Everyone was trying to shock everyone else with the Mother North video, and it was like oh, hey, it's got real boobs, dude, and things like that. A stupid thing to say because, it was on the internet and you were just a few searches away from real boobs of all shapes and sizes and, with no black metal happening in the background. But I don't know.
Hey,
I
but
think
that's also a period of time when you actually had to do that. You had to wait for perhaps say 5 minutes for
oh, yeah.
the pixelation to clear up and actually see those boobs.
Exactly. Oh God, don't remind me.
Ooh, okay. Anyways, so um, so s- from both of your answers, what I'm given to understand is both of you weren't into black metal as such before
I was
listening to Satyricon. Is that
I
so?
think it actually got my first black metal tape, which was, I mean, of course, whether this is actual true cult black metal is an entirely different can of worms. But I'd got Dusk in Her Embrace on tape before this. And I'd also, I think, got Cruelty and the Beast by Cradle of Filth. And I liked both those albums just fine. But I mean, uh, this I think Satyricon Nemesis Divina was definitely a more serious sounding album in the sense that it wasn't uh, almost cartoony hammer horror infused kind of thing like a lot of those Cradle of Filth albums were.
So yeah, so strangely enough, I also was into like symphonic death metal at that time. So no surprises, Dimmu Borgir and all of that. And laugh all you want, but I was into that whole goth metal phase. So like bands like
Oh, Theater of Tragedy and what was that
no,
other band? The Sins of Thy Beloved. Were you ever into the
Trist-
Sins of Thy Beloved?
no, but I was into Tristania, which later
Ooh,
became Sidonia.
Tristania.
Yeah, yeah. See, I knew that
Did
was
you
coming.
also did you
Oh, the
also
Beauty
like
and the Beast logo.
paint your eyelids black and your fingernails black?
No, no, I avoided all of that. But that's enough about me and Ravi. What about you, Animesh? I mean, considering you played in a black metal band, come on, I'm very curious to
I
know.
play in a black metal band now, right? But when around this time, when I first heard Satyricon, my black metal knowledge was as yours. It was limited to Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir, largely, right? That was the only black metal I'd heard, and I didn't know that that wasn't black metal as such. So I first got to hear of Satyricon or began to take them seriously only when they were announced as part of 2008's Great Indian Rock lineup, right?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
And seeing them as on the lineup, I was like, okay, what the hell? What is this band? And let's go and check them out. And of course, the first couple of clicks led them to promotions of their most recent release, which I didn't know was a black and roll album, but it had songs like Old Man Sitting on a Black Porch, or whatever that song title is.
oh god.
and and I was like, okay, this black metal? God, like, you've only heard stories about how black metal is supposed to make you feel powerful. It's supposed to be satanic. It's supposed to be demonic. It's supposed to be, oh my God, scary, right? And then you hear that and you're like, oh, this is black metal? Okay, great. Maybe it's like power metal. It's not meant for me to get. But
Just throwing that in.
so I heard that one album. Okay, I heard that one album and I went for the concert. And oh my God, that concert completely changed my mind. It that concert was, I think that's the reason why I began to enjoy proper true black metal. And I'll get into that because obviously that has a lot to do with the song Mother North, which is one of the few classics that the band played in that 2008 concert, because it was all part of that album cycle or that album tour. So we'll discuss that Mother North. We'll discuss that story when we eventually discuss Mother North. We'll talk more about the video when we eventually talk Mother North as well. But before that, let's try and set the context and understand why Nemesis Divina made for essential listening eventually. When it arrived in 1996, the world already knows about black metal. The world already knew black metal as such. Um, Specifically, it knew about Norwegian black metal. It's been a good 2 years since Mayhem and Emperor have released De Mysteries, Dom Se Thanas, and In the Nightside Eclipse, respectively. Countless churches have already been burned. Immortal, Burzum, Dark Throne. Insert your favorite second wave black metal band here. They've probably debuted and released some stellar music. Satyricon itself has released 2 albums. Its Furious debut, Dark Medieval Times, and 994's The Shadow Throne. So, Ravi, let's toss to you. What makes Nemesis Divina stand out, especially as a third album by a black metal band that's already put out raw and pretty much in the vein of normal black metal at that time albums?
Yeah, I think there was a kind of ornateness to Nemesis Divina, which was not really present in the genre. The term oft imitated, never equaled comes to mind. And I think the thing is, when you talk about things like atmosphere and stuff like that, if you don't get it, it just sounds like a gigantic load of nonsense. But
absolutely,
if you do get, I think this is one of the most palpably atmospheric black metal releases around. And right from the first track and the kickoff of This Is Armageddon, it's absolutely stunning, and it just never ever lets up. And there was it was so well produced, in the sense that everybody was talking about the raw black metal aesthetic and things like that. And, I think there were bands like even Graveland around then who were putting out these albums that were highly acclaimed, but which you had to be kind of almost a devotee of the genre to really let it sink in. I mean, it took me ages to like a lot of the really raw, underproduced black metal, because it essentially just sounded like guys bumbling or not really knowing what they were doing. But this had such a purpose to it. It was so absolutely powerful, so well put together. It was catchy without being cloying, which is such a difficult combination to pull off, in the sense that I've never actually done this experiment, but I'd say if you got even a person who's not really into metal or really into black metal or anything of that sort to listen to Mother North, they'd probably, if they were reasonably passionate about music, they'd probably find something likable there.
I've actually tried to do that. I mean, because I was tripping out over Mother North when I first heard it.
Results?
I didn't get the results as wanted, because to most other people, even those recordings, when heard over cheap ass headphones, because that's what I could afford at that time, they sound like that. But if you understand the atmosphere or the ambience, or this is such a fucking Delhi thing for me to say, but it's seriously about feel. It's about invisible oranges, and it's about feel.
No, but I'm glad you say that, because I've always felt like whenever I've lived in countries where it's actually cold, and I'm not talking Delhi cold, but I'm talking like, in the minus 15, 20 and stuff like that, that's when the black metal actually hits you. Like there's nothing like putting on your headphones, walking in like the desolate thing, and all you see all around you is just snow, and listening to black metal and getting lost in it. I think that's just it for me.
So, Peter, what made Nemesis Divina stand out for you when you first heard it?
Man, it's just that, I'd say just that aggression in there, right? I mean, like prior to this, all the stuff I've been listening to is like this symphonic, like well-produced, sounding metal in there, and you've got the keyboards and all of that. And like Ravi said, right, when the start where you just hear like This Is Armageddon, you're like, okay, like this is like literally like a call to arms of sort on the first song itself. And then you have Frost in there, who's like, I'd say like Battery is like a proper description for what he does. I mean, it's just nuts how he goes on the drums and all of that. So for me, just that aggression that kind of gets to you. And in a way, I mean, if you think about it, if you leave like the certain ambience part, there's a lot of like death metal-ish stuff in there, right? I mean, the Antichrist and the anti-religion lyrics and all of that. I think that, I mean, again, as a teenager, that kind of connects with you, right? You're just like, want something like this.
I think
about you?
Norwegian black metal can definitely take anything that's Antichrist and say, hey, no, that's my domain, and fuck off death metal. You go and talk about something else. Especially you, Glenn Benton. I don't need a whatever. I don't need to brand a cross on myself, an inverted cross on myself, because I've got corpse paint. Jack off. Okay, no. Anyways, Nemesis Divina. It's adding on to what the both of you have already said. It's fierce. It's crisp. It's intense, and there's this determination on it. There's this clarity of focus and complete, absolute only one point that needs to be hit as such. And I think that kind of is summarized in the album name itself, Nemesis Divina, enemy of the divine or enemy of God as such. And that's the lyrical theme that paints the entire album. And yes, as Ravi pointed out earlier, it has this polish on it, which I think makes it, which gives it a slight mainstream appeal. And by that, I mean, it can appeal to people who haven't heard black metal before. And I think that's the point that you were trying to raise. So let's quickly go through the songs here. 7 songs, all of them have been written by Satyr. Of course, though song number 4, that's Do Some Hater Good, or You Who Hate God, also has a songwriting credit for, of all people, Fenris. Fenris, of course, is better known as the other half of Dark Throne, alongside Nocturno Culto. So, we should all say this together, is it? Let's begin and talk about the dawn of a new age, which begins with the mighty roar. This is Armageddon. Okay, that riff, immediately when you first begin listening to it, right? It hits. It's so aggressive. It's oh my god. It's powerful. It's what black metal is supposed to make you feel like. And if you're listening to it as a metalhead, right, and you haven't heard black metal before, you'll also note that, okay, this doesn't sound as polished as normal metal should. It's not on time. It sounds weird. Is it not playing on time? Is the tempo not right? I don't know. Something seems to be off. But oh my god, the feel is unmatched, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like the way I would put it is just like how I've seen some bands use it, but this is like chest bursting. Like it just comes out of you. You're like, you just want to like scream along, and that's how I feel to some of the songs, right? I mean, it's in Norwegian, but I just want to be like growling or screeching along to it, and that's why all three of us could immediately do "This Is Armageddon" together. But you get like a sense of, Frost's talent on the drums, right? Because this is just nuts, the way he's like playing. And I never heard anything like that before. I mean, programmed drums probably, but nothing like this.
Ravi?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys have kind of covered this up really well, but that first track, it's just so fantastic. And also, the lyrics, of course, large parts of it are kind of direct quotes from the King James Bible, suitably modified here and there, especially the last part where he kind of wishes the doom of the world or whatever. It's such a total package of a song. It's goosebump inducing.
It is
fantastic. Yeah.
Yep, it is the Lex Luger of songs. He is the total package.
There's a wrestling
reference right there for you. Yeah, so why it's the Lex Luger of songs is because there's so many different facets or sides of the band that it shows you, right? There's that, obviously there's the intense black metal riffage. There is a great chorus. There's also that folksy part at the end, which takes you by surprise. And honestly, I really wasn't prepared for it. I didn't expect that to show up on this song, because it's so sonically different. But it kind of just gives you, it's like people would know that I love food analogies, so it's kind of like the perfect thali here. It gives you all the various dishes that a band like Satyricon could serve. But honestly, I still, and unless I have a lyric sheet in front of me, I still can't make out what that last final spoken part is all about.
No, I always have the lyric sheet in front of me. I mean,
yeah, it's actually from the Revelation.
of course, there's a few songs in Norwegian, so the lyric sheets aren't any help. But hey, thank God for Google Translate, right?
Exactly. So let's move on then. Let's talk about song number 2, which is in Norwegian. It's the first Norwegian song on this album. It's called Forhexet or Bewitched. Okay, so after that lengthy fucking track, it's not a lengthy track actually. It's around 6 minutes or so. The Dawn of a New Age. This one's of course shorter. It's crisper, but again, it begins on such a non-black metal kind of note. If you haven't heard enough black metal before.
Yeah, actually, that's the thing, right? About a track like this. Like you think, and of course, if you've heard certain tracks, then you kind of expect, and that's where this album kind of throws you off, right?
Yeah, I think what was interesting about the fact that the track was in Norwegian, and of course you have to remember that the first copy. I think both me and Peter got at this album was basically a burnt CD. So you had absolutely no lyrics. My internet was too shitty to I think at that point of time I was like on some ridiculous 14.4K modem, so it was not even worth searching for anything online. And so just the fact that you're hearing something in a language that you're completely unfamiliar with living in India, and it's just come after this track, it I think just builds into the mythos of black metal to perhaps an even greater degree for somebody who's non-Norwegian than for somebody who could actually understand and parse the lyrics, because you have, oh my god, what the hell is he saying, and why did he switch to Norwegian? So again, it's just part of the entire mystique and the sense that you're listening to something extremely alien and that it's completely discontinuous from all the earlier blasphemous stuff that you may have heard before that, like Deicide, which is a little silly, or rather got a little silly beyond a point, or something like Immolation, which comes to the entire idea of atheism from an almost rational kind of perspective. And this just sounds like something very, very otherworldly. And I guess the fact that it was in Norwegian, and you had no benefit of liner notes or Google Translate or anything else, just made it seem all that more of a unnerving kind of experience when you heard that.
Exactly. Yep. It sounds unnerving. It sounds evil. And here's the thing, it sounds ferocious and furious. And eventually, when I actually ended up doing the Google Translate of the lyrics, this song is about incest that's performed in a meadow of thorns under the light of the full moon, which then leads to angels being nailed to the ground, leaving the earth in a sea of flames. And while we may laugh at that, if we were to consider that seriously, the sound or the music completely paints a similar picture. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the fucking beauty of I think what this album manages to do.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily foreboding music. It's fantastic.
I mean, which makes sense why you have that transition in the middle happening in there, and also that like folksy kind of like pagan metalish outro, right?
Yeah, completely. And that leads us into song number 3, Mother North. Is this Satyricon's most popular track, or would that be King?
By such a wide margin, it's not even funny. I think they to date close shows with this track, and recently I got the live album they did with the Norwegian Choir, and that's probably the most epic rendition of that song ever. But I think the original is still my favorite because it has that X factor, that indefinable evil foreboding kind of vibe to it. And what's amazing is the fact that the song is so catchy, and if you look at the main verse pattern, it's almost like a waltz. It's essentially got the same beats as a waltz, except of course, within the meta structure of a waltz, you have this guy literally hammering every single piece of equipment he has in his drum kit to shreds. It's an amazing sensation hearing that. And to actually structure such I don't know, I mean, I'm getting a little inarticulate here, but essentially what I'm trying to say is, when you have such fast furious drumming, you don't expect the superstructure of that to be waltz like, but it actually is. And there's an interesting story about its recording. Apparently, when Frost was first got into the song, he just was completely playing 19 to the dozen, really, really fast. And the other guys had to tell him, listen, you have to slow down because you're throwing the entire song out of sync. And how are the lyrics going to fit into the drum patterns that you're coming up with? So,
yeah, and it's crazy, right? Because when I was, so 5 years ago, I happened to do an interview with Frost when they did the 20th anniversary and we're doing the remaster of this album. The chorus riff, right, is actually written by Frost. And I'm just going to read out what his response to the interview was, because it was via email. He said, at some point, I got the idea for a guitar theme that could fit the song. And even though I didn't really play guitar, I managed to play the theme in a way that made sense. And that's basically how Satyr kind of built on that. But he says that I perceive Mother North as more energetic and intense. And it's only when he heard the finished arrangement did it actually make sense. But yeah, that story is crazy of how I'm just going nuts in the recording studio, because I don't know how they could have pulled it off in a way.
Yeah. But the way that they managed to do it and the way that they managed to structure that song, oh my God, it's so. Here is a big confession, I guess, or whatever. I don't know who's tracking my life besides me, but if my biography was ever to be written, it would include the fact that Mother North is probably the reason for my love of black metal, because I heard it live, and that was the first time I heard the song.
I was actually at that same gig that you mentioned, and I was practically gritting my teeth through the more commercial stuff that they did, and I think they were touring Now Diabolical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the album.
Commercial, this basically.
That Satyricon is so different.
Yeah, this is basically hard rock with harsher vocals.
Exactly, right? It's black and rock. It's black and roll, whatever you want to call that.
And then they, I think, ended the set even on that occasion with Mother North, and it was okay, fine, this is completely redeemed.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, right? My exposure to Satyricon at that time, as I had said before, was only Now Diabolical, and the set that they played on that show had more of their black and roll kind of stuff. So I wasn't even expecting anything to, I had written off the band, and then the band starts playing Mother North. I kid you not. My feet literally, it was as if a zombie or something had emerged from the ground and had grabbed me by the ankles. I was rooted to the ground. I felt a genuine sense of fear. I felt terror. A cold shiver literally ran down my spine. I was flummoxed. I was like, oh my God, what is this music? Why is this making me feel in this manner? And I remember a couple of people. I remember Hari, and I remember Arun from Devoid. Both of them were in tears while Mother North is being played. And I don't think, I don't know, maybe we met you, Ravi, maybe we didn't.
Yeah, there were 40 odd people in that gig. We must have met.
Yeah, we must have met. Yeah. But Mother North and the sheer epicness of it, the sheer feel of it completely changed my mind about Satyricon. I went home that same night on my shitty ass internet connection, found a torrent link or whatever, downloaded the album, and have been a fan of it ever since. That album changed my life. That
Yeah.
song changed my life.
Yeah, that was one of the. I mean, as soon as I managed to get a hold of the CD, I bought it, and I was like, "Oh man, these guys deserve my money for this album. It's so freaking excellent." So, if any of the band members still think I'm like
Cheap ass.
Oh yeah, all of us actually.
burnt CD, I'm not.
Don't worry, Satyr. Don't worry.
Yeah,
You
bought
have
the
our
mo-
money.
Yeah,
we-
I actually was thinking of plumping for the 20th anniversary remaster, though it's now, I think, a little out of print and frightfully expensive. But well, it's got the record and the CD, and of course the kind of LP.
yeah,
it
the whole
has
set.
even the album cover. Uh, are we going to be talking about the album cover at some time? Because
Yes,
that's
yes, yes. We will. We
Of
will.
course.
We will do that at the end to wrap everything
cool.
up. Okay. Also, while
The
we are
video.
talking Mother North, we have to talk about that music video.
You want to do it right now? Okay.
Of
let's do it.
course. We have to talk about it right now.
Yeah, so I think I heard the album maybe around 98, 99 thereabouts. In 2001, I think Roger Waters was playing Bangalore, and I went to Bangalore, and there I got to meet a lot of people who are hugely into extreme metal. And one of them had actually downloaded the video, and he was the guy who was like, very thrilled about the fact that this was a video with actual boobs in it, as opposed to who knows what. But we sat and we watched the video, and I think the video kind of diminished the song for me, because it was. I mean, first of all, I think I didn't at that point of time appreciate the difference between the budgets allocated to bands on big labels like Iron Maiden, whose videos were absolutely fantastic, mini movie
True.
things, or even somebody like, I don't know, say Extreme. Of course, they're a hard rock band, but they had some fairly good videos, like the Rest in Peace video is really nice. And then there was this, and I had absolutely no idea about the social pecking order of bands and things like that. And I was like, what the hell is this? This looks so cheap. This is essentially like, one of the made on the fly Hindi horror films. There's just a guy overusing the smoke machine. There's close ups on an eye looking here and there to kind of create tension. There's this woman listlessly wandering around topless. So this was, of course, the censored version. I later saw the uncensored version in which the woman gets stabbed. But, it's all very, very laughable and cartoony gore. And, it's
Yeah.
basically B-movie production values and Bollywood B-movie production values, which is,
C movie production values.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have Mithun Chakrabarti producing these films. He would have done a better job.
These people wouldn't be able to afford Mithun, dude.
Exactly. That's exactly what I meant.
This is the sort of film where Rami Reddy was the hero. So,
You're right. But here's the thing, right? This music video somehow became the poster child for black metal music videos, and the reason for them to go mainstream in a way too, because it gives you everything that you want from a black metal video, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Even though it has shitty production values.
Yeah. So, like, just going back to that interview that I did with Frost, right? He said that they actually, so Satya and him actually wanted to make a music video after like 3 albums, and it was no surprise that they chose Mother North because of the catchiness and the epic qualities. And if you've seen like the unedited or the uncut version of it, you have that intro bit, right, with like the kind of anthemic part that they've got.
Yeah,
So-
they basically sample a lot of classical music, both at the beginning and the end.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you've seen that fire breathing scene that's there in the start, right? That's actually Frost that did it. And he said that he got totally soaked in gasoline and ended up, because it was so cold, vomiting on the location because it was like that brutally cold in there. But like, this is the thing about like black metal, right? He says, I didn't care much about it though. My only concern was whether we would make we would manage to make the video visually striking enough. So this is like literally doing all it takes for the art, right?
Of course, that's what black metal is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was. I think it was not exactly a narratively very very coherent video. Though I think we earlier today read somebody who kind of, I think, sort
Trying
of
to do a dissertation as such
Yeah.
on
everything
Mother
that happens
North.
in that video, and then complain saying that, oh, but this doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense because maybe your premise was stupid to start with.
If
Yeah,
this
but it just
video,
seemed like a series of images that somebody that kids who wanted to come up with, and I think they were barely out of their teens around the time they made this.
Yeah.
So it was
I think
basically the kind of ideas that very young heavy metal fans who've probably seen a fair number of inexpensively produced horror movies take their cues from, while at the same time trying to kind of hint at the majesty and mystery in the entire thing. But you of course don't have any budget that's going to support majesty and mystery. You're at least 2 decades away from having technologies which allow you to kind of have majesty and mystery in your hand, if you know how to shoot well enough. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's very much a product of its time. And I don't know, I mean, I think there's a trend these days of people kind of redoing videos or coming up with new videos for old songs. And who knows, maybe if these guys put their minds and the kind of budgets that they have at their disposal to it, we might actually get that really rousing and narratively coherent video out of it. But yeah,
I would love to see a Mother North video directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Or even a Ram Gopal Verma.
Oh boy.
No, that would. Well, the Ram Gopal Verma version would be very much different from what we have at the moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you that question only. Like Ram Gopal Verma in 2021 or like say from the 90s?
Oh, in their primes, of course, in their primes.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, so let's move on. Let's move on to the next song, which is Du som hater good, or You Who Hate God. Now, for me, these 4 songs together, you have to hear them as a package eventually when you do get around to wanting to listen to albums as such, because these 4 songs make the first half of the album a really, really, really strong listen. And going with the lyrical theme, lyrics, once again translated, what that means is it's an attack on God, where God is blamed to lead fellow Norwegians to ruin. He has devastated the Norwegian realm with his ugly words, and thus he must leave the field. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into that, a quick question: did any of you other guys, for the longest time, stop hearing the album after Mother North? Because I did that for a very, very, very long time.
For me,
I upgraded to the full CD that I was like, oh, okay, now I may as well plod my way through the rest of this. But
for me, that happens after Do Some Hate a God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the first 4, which is why I say the first 4 songs, you have to hear it in a package because everything flows beautifully. It's an intensity which doesn't drop at all.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you're right. The remaining 3 songs, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they're great, but
they just don't have the oral intensity.
The thing is, Mother North sets the bar so high. Actually, the first 4 tracks set the bar so high. It's a bit of a come down, but it's not like it sucks or it's something that you hate, or it's not like something that you feel doesn't belong on the album at all. It's just that the album starts on such a high that it would be, I guess, humanly impossible to keep up that intensity for 8 songs. I think 4 songs is about as much juice as you've got.
Maybe. So these 3 songs that we're talking about, these are Immortality, Passion, the title track Nemesis Divina, and the only instrumental on the album, Transcendental Requiem of Slaves.
it's interesting because it kind of takes off from the end of Nemesis Divina and then gets into purely ambient territory. And I think it's a good way to end the album.
Completely. No. I agree with you on that. So, though it doesn't sounds, though initially, okay, let me rephrase that. Though when I first heard the album, it didn't sound like it belonged on the album. On future releases, now that I've heard more black metal, etc., I think it serves its purpose, because to a non-fan, this will act as almost like a palate cleanser of sorts.
It's got more of a vibe of sadness. It's this very, very elegiac outro. Essentially, I think the entire song, Nemesis Divina in particular, is about Christianity coming to Norway and how it's essentially ruined the old ways, etc., etc. And the entire last part is, like it says in the title, a requiem. So,
Yeah.
Like
got this moody, depressing.
So the first few times I heard that Burn CD, I thought like it was like 2 albums or some other track like kind of recorded on there, as with most of the Burn CDs you had, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess these are one of those albums, I guess, when you in retrospect listen and kind of spend time, right? Which unfortunately today you don't have when you're listening to on streaming, right? Where you're just kind of like skipping through tracks. That back then you just had like few CDs and you just kept listening to them. So eventually you kind of warmed up to them, right?
Oh, absolutely correct. Yeah. So that is Nemesis Divina as far as music goes, as far as production goes, as far as just the album goes. Let's quickly talk about the artwork. Ravi.
That was so fantastic. I mean, it was frankly one of the scariest album art things I'd ever seen, because I to date have no idea whether the bird was killed for the cover or if it was just a random dead / stuffed bird. But if you look at it, it's essentially the bird and all the wires that it's kind of been tied to this thing with, and there are these odd symbols and eyes and flames and things like that around it. It was such a huge step up in terms of black metal album art. I mean, the Cradle of Filth albums, I still think they're black metal. Other people may disagree, but they had a kind of recognizable sort of cheesiness to that. You looked at it and you're like, yeah, that's probably by a kid who grew up watching, The Brides of Dracula or something like that. It was very Hammer horror. It was very, very British horror tropes, brought to life in a kind of slightly R-rated manner. Whereas this just struck you as, again, very, very discontinuous, something that was completely different, something that you hadn't seen at all on album art before. I honestly think it's their best album cover. I don't think even Satyricon have been able to top that in terms of the visual impact that cover makes.
Yeah, so what Frost actually mentioned in the interview, that it was inspired by the thematics and music of Nemesis Divina. And don't worry, for all our PETA listeners and also the vegans and all of them there. So the artist Stein Loken actually created an art installation which he then later set on fire. So the bird wasn't set on fire. It was the art installation.
But was the bird killed for the art? That's the question, right?
I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, I don't think, to be honest, Satyricon have been able to top the artwork. What do you think, Animesh?
I don't think they've been able to top this album ever again. Yeah, this was the lightning in a bottle. This was, I think, when when Satyr went into, that's the story, right? Satyr goes into his house, or he gets a new house, which is absolutely far away from everywhere else in the world. And he sits down and he starts only writing and focusing and writing out this album. I don't think he's ever, I think after this album, the amount of applause kind of went to his head. And so he went mainstream. And so the band goes mainstream.
think so. I mean, I think Rebel Extravaganza was not really mainstream sounding. It was industrial black metal.
Yeah.
It did not really flow from, Nemesis Divina, but it was definitely nowhere near as, catchy as the later material would be. I'm talking here about full length albums, of course. I think they did a
Yeah,
couple in between, which I haven't heard. But I think this was probably their most challenging album in the sense that it is just incredibly intense, start to stop, and unlike Nemesis Divina, which gives you, I don't know, for want of a better way of describing it, auditory breathing room with the slightly folksy passages, or
Yeah.
that slow brooding bit within Mother North. This is just, you know, one gnashing, powerful kind of uh, force of nature, start to finish. And it's actually, force of nature is a bad way of describing it because it sounds completely mechanized and alien. And I think it's probably the finest industrial metal's finest moment. It's apogee or whatever. You can of course call it industrial black metal or whatever, but I think that album is incredible.
yeah. But
But
okay,
then
so the
after that,
reason,
I was
yeah,
really shocked because other albums were, kind of like more on the commercial side, and I still liked their self-titled album, which, but by the time I got to the self-titled album, I was like, I'm just listening to an entirely different band that happens to have the same name.
exactly. So here's where I was going with the mainstream thing, because it's after Nemesis Divina that Satyricon actually starts to get those tours and get bigger labels and eventually get recognized and start selling really lots of merch and
Yeah,
etc etc. And the music video for Mother North, I think, did a lot for them too, because it got them seen, and it got them picked up and blah and blah and blah. So I think somewhere they lost their roots, and even though they went on and did so many other albums, I don't think, like, maybe it's kind of like the Pantera story but in reverse, right?
how so?
I mean, you had glam metal going into proper groove metal and what became their calling. And at the moment, like really, if you were to ask black metal fans which era of Satyricon everyone listens to, yeah, I don't know how many people would say that, yeah, they like listening to Now Diabolical.
So who do you think the current fans are?
I don't know, actually. That's a very good question.
Are they black metal fans who's kind of hearing, and bodies have caught up with them, and they're like, I don't want to hear something that fast and intense anymore, but I still want to hear Satyricon, so I'll listen
I
to
think
it.
I think the current era Satyricon fans are those who love listening to metal on the radio and can't choose their own music.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's why they can still listen to King, right?
Yeah, King. Oh well. Okay, but it's good. It's good that Satyricon goes mainstream and it abandons its black metal roots for black and roll approach. I think it's good that it happened because, hey, at least that brought them to India, which
Yeah, I mean, which blows my mind till date when I say it.
Yeah,
out
do you
loud.
remember the band they toured with, Sag, who is the stoner doom band, and who did a couple of really good albums, and then I didn't like their third album. Their first album was called Sag 1, and the second was Sag 2.
Sag 2.
And then I kind of lost interest around Sag 3.
Yeah, but when I say it out loud, that's what I'm going to say it. It still blows my mind. Man, Satyricon played Andheri Sports Complex.
I swear. I mean, what are the odds, right?
Yeah,
exactly. What are the odds? What are the odds? But thank God it happened, because if that didn't happen, maybe we wouldn't be talking about this album today.
Oh,
so,
yeah, for sure.
All's well that ends well, right?
Yeah.
We need to thank poor Amit Sehgal, who's the only person bringing all of these really cool bands down to India.
Yeah, man.
Satyricon, Enslaved, of course, he's no longer around to, receive our gratitude. But what a guy.
What a
True,
guy.
true.
RSJ, take a bow. Amit Cycle,
Yeah.
take a bow.
While I was preparing for this episode, right, I was reading that Satyricon are actually in the studio right now, and their last album, which was in 2017, Deep Call It Unto Deep. I don't know if you guys have heard it. I heard it
didn't.
like a couple of times, but they're doing a follow-up to that album, which is due next year. And according to Satyr, the new album, and I quote, will feature instrumentation. Will feature instrumentation that you're not used to hearing, and is not a collection of songs.
So what is it a collection of?
I have no idea what they're up to.
I don't know. I just hope it's not Satyricon getting into their belated Depeche Mode phase like a lot of other black metal bands did.
Like Alba, you mean?
Yeah, like Alva or well, they were in black metal, but Paradise.
I hope.
Depeche Mode their way through, I think, the early 2000s.
Correct.
So, I think every band that does this at some point of time decides, we want to do a song like Enjoy the Silence. And,
Maybe. I just hope it's not like Burzum's
oh my God,
like
no.
late, the absolute last few albums.
The Jail Chronicles. Oh, I haven't bothered hearing anything after Bellis.
Yeah, keep it at that. Keep it at
I'll
that.
send you the new album.
On that note, any other albums that are celebrating a big birthday, let us know. We are all ears. We'd love to discuss them with you, if, of course, we deem them worthy to be discussing. That's a challenge thrown right at you. You know where to find us. We are at honsubpod.com or on Twitter at honsubpod. I'm at Asmoani on Twitter.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
Ravi, do you want to plug yourself?
Nope.
As always, that's Ravi for you. Anyways, see you guys. Horns up.
Horns up, guys.
Horns up.